From quarantining to just being cooped up, the coronavirus has a lot of families feeling stir crazy. But this topsy-turvy year can be especially hard on kids. Psychologists say they're seeing young patients who are stressed and anxious. But the question is, what's normal and what behaviors should parents step in on? No doubt the pandemic has taken a toll on everyone, kids included. For them, one of the big changes is how they're learning.
You have to do it on the tablet or a computer.
Because school is strange, that's limiting social engagement.
You wouldn't miss all of your friends that you get to see at school?
No, because they'll be on camera.
They'd be on camera with you? That is true.
Alicia Strobel and her husband do their best to keep 5-year-old Iris and 7-year-old Steven understanding what's changing around them.
This is going to be temporary, that we're going to make the best out of any situation that we possibly can.
That, though, hasn't come without any stress.
Trying to stay afloat and find creative ways to keep the business going because we couldn't meet at the salon. And then teaching them at the same time, engaging with them.
Alicia runs a small business. She owns a salon. A lot of her stress comes from keeping her kids from being stressed while also protecting the family livelihood.
All those moving parts and pieces to make sure that you were giving them the attention that they needed to keep them, on par with school, that I was giving my employees and my business the attention that it needed to keep things going.
Feeling overwhelmed and concerned about how your kids are coping with a global pandemic is expected.
We're seeing increased anxiety. We're seeing increased depression during this time.
Brian Richter is a child psychologist at St. Louis Children's Hospital. He says some kids are really struggling to adapt.
The intuition that nobody is really themselves during this time is totally on point.
Dr. Richter says parents can help, and it starts with parents being honest about your own feelings.
It's a really powerful message. I think a lot of kids kind of assume that mom and dad or whatever else don't really have feelings other than kind of being strong and happy all the time. And just normalizing these things can be so important.
He says by modeling for your kids that life affects you too, it makes them more comfortable to express when they're not okay.
The caution there is that you are sending that message that it's not okay to be sad or to be nervous if I need to fix this, and don't worry about that. So we really want to send that message of I totally understand that you're worried about that.
He says those feelings are okay until they're not. If you notice your kid is anxious often, even depressed, or can't seem to calm themselves out of the anxiety and stress cycle, encouraging them to be present in their feelings and recentering themselves can help. Dr. Richter calls it anchoring or grounding.
3 steps. The first is to notice, name, and acknowledge your thoughts and feelings. Whatever is showing up for you in your head and your body is totally okay. The second one is to connect, control, and move your body. Stretching, pushing your feet into the floor, pushing your hands together, whatever's comfortable for you. And then the third step is to be present and refocus on what you're doing.
Dr. Richter says other times reinforcing positive behaviors or recognizing just the crumminess of some situations can scoop them out of a meltdown too. And for the older age group,
being anxious, being sad is more of a problem for some kids and teens. Then take that step. Face your problem. It is so scary to do, but there is a lot of power and strength in that.
Dr. Richter also made a point to remind parents to take care of themselves too. Keep up with your own mental health checks.
When you are taking care of yourself and doing what you need to do for your behavioral health, you're also benefiting those around you.
And if you think sheltering from the storm is the answer, Dr. Richter says to consider the truth.
Whether that's about coronavirus or other current events, it is important to talk about those things in a frank and open and honest way.
That's the tactic the Strobels have taken.
So that was something that we talked to them about, is really there's just going to be different ways that we're all going to engage these days.
Alicia says she's amazed at how well her kids have taken the COVID-induced changes of 2020 all in stride.
As adults, too, one of the things we struggle with is there's no end in sight, because it's we do really good with timelines versus our kids are so funny. And even with the neighbors' kids, they're like, what's today, mommy? And I'm like, well, today's, November 4th, November 5th. And they're like, I think the coronavirus is going to end on November 15th. And they just have these definitive dates in their head where they think that it's just going to end. And you're like, I need to feel that way, the way that you're feeling.
The reality is, and as Dr. Richter knows, that's not the case for every family. So if you have a child who's on the other end of the spectrum and struggling to adapt, you don't have to feel alone.
It's something that's really hard, and it is a very strong thing to do, to reach out for help in those moments.
We also want you to know St. Louis Children's Hospital has a number you can call if you think your family could benefit from a chat with a psychologist. You can find that number inside this story on the KMOV News app.